Hi guys, my name is Gabrielle Robinson.
And my name is Vanessa Liu, and welcome back to another episode of Life Unfiltered. Today we're going to be talking about social media, and we have our producer, Thomas Butcher, in this episode too, giving some of his personal feedback or, his insight on some of the topics we talk about. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey everyone, my name is Thomas Butcher. I'm a producer here in the district and I run the Creative Guild, which is where we are right now, letting these two young ladies produce their podcast. Looking forward to everything that there's still to come, and I'm excited that they're letting me be a voice on today's episode.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you. So before we get in, I just wanted to remind all of our listeners to look at our Instagram bio. We have important links such as our Google Form for the advice and future topics and if you want to be a guest. And then we also have the links for every episode. So yeah, thank you guys all for listening to the first podcast. If you did, and if you didn't, thanks for joining us on our second one. I hope you enjoy.
Yes. So let's talk about why we wanted to talk about social media in the first place and why it's an important topic for young listeners like high schoolers to listen about.
So basically, Nessa, I just had a couple questions for you. I know that you deleted social media for a little while. Can you tell us a little bit your story, why you decided to do that?
Yeah, so I think it was 2 or 3 years ago that I deleted my personal Instagram accounts, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, just everything. And one, it was a productivity reason because I had so much going on with school and other priorities that social media felt like it was taking up too much of my time. Mm-hmm. So that was a big reason why I got rid of social media, but also the mental impacts of it, just overall, comparing myself or, having these unrealistic expectations for myself because of social media. And I would catch myself posting pictures of me, just on vacation and this and that, and just constantly being worried about how other people perceived me, what they thought about me. And all of these things kind of led me to being tired of these pressures on me. And it became I was living for other people instead of me living for myself. It became a thing of what are these people thinking about me instead of how do I think about who I am and what my identity is. It was always through someone else's lens, and that became so overwhelming for me, and I knew I needed to take a break. So it's been honestly, I think 2 years off of social media completely, and then I came back to it for school related events and activities. I run different social media platforms like this for our podcast that's TSC affiliated, and also most of you guys probably know my Perfectly Imperfect HOSA account that's for a school club. So yeah.
So how do you feel your personal connections outside of social media has affected school and your other friendships and things like that? How do you think that's changed since you deleted social media?
So with social media, I felt there's many good things about social media too. We can point that out. You stay connected with friends, you see what everyone's doing, and that's a great thing. You see what's new. And when I deleted social media, I kind of I guess lost that connection with a lot of the people I was following or staying up to date with. And I kind of realized after deleting social media who my real friends were, because a few days ago it was my birthday and only my real friends knew. They had it on their calendar or they remembered.
Right.
And contrasting to 3 years ago when everyone, would post me on their stories and everyone knew when my birthday was, it was very different seeing how people treated me then versus now. You really see who matters in your life. And if you have social media just to stay connected to people, once you delete it, you kind of see who is real in your life. And I think that matters more, having those small groups of people that truly matter and truly know you, and it's important to them to keep up with you. It's more important to have that small group of people to have a bunch of people who you don't really know, who you don't connect with. So I feel for me, deleting social media was kind of a relief on my end, even though it was lonely at times, not staying up to date with everything, not seeing what's new in our community, what's new with school, what's new with all these people. Even though it felt a little bit lonely at first, I felt it was so peaceful after not worrying about what other people had to say about me and what, their opinions were about me.
Right. And I feel like also with social media, it like fosters a lot of superficial connections. Like you were saying, like people didn't know your birthday, and I love my birthday. I start celebrating it now. Like my birthday's in September. So.
Guys, she like announces it like 2 months in advance, and everyone has to know it's her birthday. It's so funny.
So like I definitely understand what you mean about like the reaching out and stuff. Like I definitely saw a change like within like people and how they approached you as well. So I feel like the thing about social media, like I use it to be connected with everyone else because there's people that I haven't talked to in like years, and like seeing how they're doing and stuff like in a positive light, I think that's so special. But at the same time, there are people that go to our school that we only know things about them through social media and nothing else. And I feel like like reels and stuff, like highlight reels, TikToks, those things like show the great parts of individuals' life, and it gives like an inflated image or like kind of like a fake like influencer like scenario, you know what I mean? Because you think everyone is having like such a positive life, and you don't really think of like the person themselves. So like social media has good and like pros and cons, but so what else do you want to share about your social media journey?
I mean, there's not much to it. I feel like it was more peaceful without social media, especially now since I am on it more, because I have to like post and like, stay up to date with like all my postings, and like I feel like I'm on it more, and I see people's stories or I see people's posts, and I don't know, I do prefer my life without social media just because it was a lot more peaceful. And it's like pretty human to like compare yourself with other people, like, and because social media only paints out the good of your life, it's easy for us to get caught up in these high expectations, and you know what I mean? It's kind of like toxic depending on who you are and how you use social media. But for a lot of teenagers now, I know it's a big issue with comparisons, with like low self-esteem. Because for me, back when I used to like post on my social media, I would always like look at my pictures, look at my likes. Like my happiness was purely based on what other people thought about me, and that like it's so normalized in society now. And I feel like it's not like a big topic that we talk about because using social media is so normal. And I'm not advocating, I'm not telling you to like delete your social media accounts or anything.
You're just sharing your experience.
Exactly. And I'm just like trying to bring awareness to how social media can affect you, and also make people realize that your happiness doesn't depend on how other people perceive you. Because if you're living the rest of your life to get validation from other people, then what life are you really living,
Right.
Like,
not yours.
Exactly. Like, I know back then, like, I would be really scared about starting new things. Like, I don't even think I would have started this podcast, I'm not gonna lie, just because I was, like, scared of, like, starting new things or, like, new opinions. But now that I've been off social media and, like, I found out who I am and, like, you know what I mean? Like, I know who I am, and I know, like, my goals, and I don't care as much about what people have to say about me. I'm more inclined to do new things, to try out uncomfortable things that some people might be scared to do. And I feel like that's like, something like I'm really grateful for.
Right. I feel like my experience with social media, I have never deleted it, but I do like see where you're coming from. I think I was one of the people like in our age group that got it a little bit later. Like, I got it like 7th grade, I think, which was like people already had social media, that is really young, but like for our grade, like our graduating class, everyone had social media earlier than that. So I definitely understand what you're saying, and like people do use their sense of validation through others, and I feel like that's why it's important to get social media later in life, so you know yourself more and you don't have to depend on other people. And
exactly,
like you said about like doing things outside of the norm, like I feel like I wrote a paper on this for Amy Research about like social conformity in education, and it talks about that more like in education as well as like just in society as a whole. When you're doing something like that everyone else is doing, it's really hard to stray outside of the norm, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I agree with you, like with this podcast, like a lot of people are probably like, oh, what are they doing, you know what I mean? But like we're advocating for change, we're trying to hear, like, have voices heard, give advice, like belonging, inclusion, and it is different, and people are scared of different. I mean, I was too. So like I think that through social media it's like really hard to do what you really enjoy without fear of judgment of others. And I
Yeah.
think, Tom, you can talk about that a little bit too, right?
Well, just for me, it always goes back to how social media is not real life.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of what you said alluded to this because you don't see the struggle. You don't see the everyday challenges that people go through in life on social media. All you see is the best stuff. You see the highlights. And if that's all you see, then you start to have this warped perception that everyone else is better than you are. And that's not a good and healthy way to live your life.
Right.
So I know you had some stats that you wanted to go through about that you did a little research on. Is there anything you wanted to share with our audience?
Yeah, so actually social media can cause a lot of like mental health related issues. So according to the US Department of Health and Human Services, it says like adolescents who spend more than 3 hours a day on social media is twice as likely to experience depression and anxiety.
Which
Which-
is insane.
That's insane because I know my screen time is way more than 3 hours on social media, like way more than that. And like, although I do not feel like depressed or very anxious, I could see how someone could feel that way, especially like constantly comparing yourself and like constantly thinking that your life is not as fulfilling as someone else's. Like, I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen like a lot of my friends go through like mental health issues, and I feel like you've seen like a big rise in them over the years, and I feel like social media, it isn't the only cause, but it is a big contributor to this increase in mental health issues. And mental health is a big topic, like especially with high schoolers and young adults. Like, it's something that we need to address, and it's like an issue that we do need to, help advocate for, because with social media, for example, like students feel like maybe one, they're not enough, and two, it's kind of like an outlet to repress your feelings. Like, some of my friends have told me this too, and like my sister too, some of you might know her name's Tiffany Lou, but she told me like when she did have social media, she would use it to just scroll and like ignore any problems that she had going on. Like, it was a tool to forget about what problems she had and to just like dive into this like fake world of like happiness and dopamine. And it's kind of like a toxic way to cope with your feelings.
Yeah, and in that same way, I feel like if a person is experiencing a little bit of sadness, like especially on TikTok, like you can get really deep in like those very depressive like videos, and
Yeah.
like I feel like constantly seeing like on your For You page, which if you don't know what that is, it's like when you open the app, it's just like when you scroll and like the feed that shows up based on like the videos that you like and the people that you follow. So if you're constantly liking videos like that and like that's all the data that you're consuming, like you're gonna feel more sad because that's what you're seeing all the time. And if you're spending a lot of time on TikTok and all of your For You page is saying like, hey, like, this is sad, like all this is so bad, you know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
gonna feel worse about it. And that's what I like back on our first episode when we were talking about practicing gratitude, like prior to how I practice gratitude, I feel like when you scroll and like you look at other people's lives and then you compare it to your own and all that, and like looking on the feed and like seeing all these negative like things like going to, you know what I mean? Like it's like easy to feel a sense of like sadness, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
There's that like watching really like sad stuff and like that consuming your emotions, and there's also like watching really the all happy stuff and repressing your sad emotions, you know? Because some of my friends I know, like they might have like a bunch of homework to do, and their way to cope with this overwhelming feeling is literally scrolling, and then that leads to like messing up your sleep schedule, or just like, you know what I mean, like. So I've just heard a lot of like issues with social media, especially with high schoolers, and it's just an issue I feel like we need to talk about, because so many people are struggling with balancing with like their school life and their extracurriculars with, maybe being stuck on social media, maybe being stuck with this like never ending loophole of scrolling.
Yeah, but I also think like for some social media, like for example, I am a part of a lot of clubs, councils, and I'm also an athlete. So in the like 5-10 minutes like that we have for breaks, sometimes like when you're waiting for this thing to end to go somewhere else, like in the car, like if someone's driving you, or like, it's just like cool to scroll for a little bit,
Yeah.
But I do also see like if you have nothing going on, which is not a bad thing, but if you have nothing going on, you're taking all your time and like scrolling and stuff, like it kind of, like you were saying earlier, like you lose real life connections, and that's kind of like sad.
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah. And then another fact that we have is like the dopamine release. So social media activates the brain reward center, which releases dopamine, and that's linked to pleasurable activities, which is like what we were talking about with like the scrolling sensation. Like the more you scroll, it's like you're thinking you're gonna see something funny, or you're gonna see something more like what you saw 5 minutes ago or an hour ago, and it's like the sense of time, like when you're watching TikTok or Instagram Reels or YouTube, like it kind of goes away when you're expecting to see something else, like every single time that you click on something new. So, yeah.
So I feel like if you guys ever get a chance, like try social media detox and kind of like, you know, I was watching this video and it was about a guy who did a detox, and like the comments were talking about like we're learning how to be human again. Like, isn't that insane? Because I know for you, like you use social media like when you need it, like you have a healthy relationship with it. But I feel like for like a handful of students, like that's not the case. Like it's kind of like taking over your life, and it's because maybe you don't feel motivated, or this is like an easier way to like feel happy. You know what I mean? Like, but it's important to also take breaks from it and, you know, do your hobbies, find things that you like, have passions, because living is way more than scrolling. Living is way more than just like keeping up with your social media page and like creating this like, you know, persona that you have online.
And I know so many of my friends, when like TikTok was banned for like 12 hours, they were like freaking out, like literally. And then I saw so many people saying like TikTok was muscle memory for them and all that stuff.
Crazy, yeah.
Right. And then when TikTok came back, I saw all these videos and people were like, I was actually kind of excited for TikTok to be banned so I can read, I can do this. And I'm like, why are you not able to do that? You know what I mean? Like, why are you not able to do that without it? And some people were saying they wanted to like discover more within themselves without the app. And it's just like, that's kind of sad. Like, but like, I hope, like I have social media, I use it, like I never had a detox, anything like that. But sometimes I do go ghost, like I delete my apps, like, and like I feel like that's good, you know, because like sometimes I want to be more in the moment. But if for anyone that's watching, if you had TikTok and you literally could not survive for 12 hours, you should probably reflect a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah. But yeah. So how do you think like being critical of yourself and other people, like how has social media influenced that?
So yeah, I think this is a pretty big topic too, because being on social media, you see a lot of like, I guess, projection. Like you can go on like a reel or a short or whatever you guys call it, like on Instagram, and like see people in the comments like hating on someone, like, oh, like she's big, or like this and that, or I don't like her outfit, all these mean things. And then you find out like you look at their page and maybe it's like a fake account and they made it up just to bully people. And it's just like, it's a crazy thing. But I want to talk about how social media is like kind of an outlet for people to project their feelings and insecurities. And like you see all these beautiful people like online, or you see their perfect lives, and you like, you know, some people tend to compare themselves. And this kind of leads to like lower self-esteem. And some people, I'm not like generalizing, I'm not saying everyone does this, but some people tend to bring others down to make themselves feel better.
Right.
So I've seen that, like, I feel like a lot in today's society.
And it's also not even just like through social media, like that happens in real life too. Like, when you're doing something good, more people are bound to just like hate on it because it's different than the norm. And I feel like that's like an era of growth that I have like overcome, because like I said, like when I was on social media heavily and all that, like I would be less inclined to do things on my own. But now like I'm doing things that I would never have, like starting a podcast with Thomas Butcher at Troy School District. Like I would never have done that on my own.
It's very
like,
kind.
Yeah. The Thomas Butcher. But yeah, so like, but like I was saying, like within high school and all that, like in conforming to society, I would never have like done and been so ambitious and like, you know, tenacious with all the things that I wanted to do. And I'm happy that like I learned to step outside of the comfort zone, and it's okay to not like be like everyone else.
Yeah, so. Exactly. One of my friends, she was telling me how she felt very critical like about other people. Like she tended to judge a lot of people for their actions. And like she was just asking me like, why do I feel like this? Why do I judge people so easily? And I was like, well, are you thinking about like, yourself? Like, are you judging yourself? Are you
Right.
being like, are you criticizing yourself a lot? And then she took a minute. She's like, wait, you're right. And I was like, yeah. So it's kind of important to do a little bit of self-reflection because everything you do is kind of a reflection of yourself. How you treat
Right.
other people is a reflection of yourself.
Right.
So if you feel like, you know, you're treating some people a different type of way, like trying to look inside of yourself to see why you're doing that. And I saw this other video where this girl, she used to have an eating disorder, and when she did, she would look at other people and she would body shame them. And then she realized it was because she was being critical about her own body.
Right.
So I feel like that's really important to like self-reflect and realize like all of these things that you're thinking and saying, like, you know, why are you saying it?
Right.
And that also like reverses back onto you. Like if someone is treating you a bad way, you know they're projecting their insecurities. They might
Right.
be insecure, they might be jealous. Like, do you want to tell them about like someone who was hating on our podcast a little bit?
And not even that. Just like in general, like if if you feel, how do I say this? When we're starting something new, we're talking about a lot of things that haven't been said before, and like trying to give advice. And I feel like obviously like it's out of the ordinary, and
Yeah.
people are not used to things that are different. And I feel like Nessa and I, we still had enough courage to continue doing what we wanted to do, what we love. So I'm happy, and I hope that everyone will listen to it. But if
Yeah.
not, that is okay too. So like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I have to say, from my perspective too, is that starting anything is always daunting. It's always a scary thing. And what I feel like stops a lot of young people from trying something new is this fear of failure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you look at failure and success, it really comes down to what your definition of those words truly is.
Right.
And the other side of that is that there is no learning without some form of failure.
Right.
So if you're so afraid to ever start something new, then you're never going to move forward from where you are.
Right.
So from my perspective, I very much admire you taking this risk, if that's what you want to call it, of starting a podcast and doing something that's going to make you happy. And even furthermore, talking about topics that are pretty important for people your age to be discussing. So going along with that, and I know as we're running low on time, because I feel like there's the side of social media where you could, it's either creating problems or it's exacerbating problems that already
Right.
exist. So I don't know how you find that balance, or if you're able even to identify at your age, like where the problem's coming from and what's going to help you move forward. So if you could maybe talk through that a little bit, and also as you wrap up, what your final thoughts on positive, like pros and cons of social media overall.
So I think, like we were saying earlier, social media can be very positive because, like, you can advocate for change. Like, even though this is not really social media, like, we're using our platforms for the account, the Spotify, to reach more people. So, like, that's what our purpose of using social media is for. But even with all, like, the bad things, anything can be twisted and, like, make it, you know, you can make light of any situation.
Yep.
So I feel like being kind, choosing kindness, not only on social media, but also in life, it can be so much more fulfilling. So like if people can use those principles and treat how they would treat people in person online, then social media would be just like such a much more like positive place.
Yeah. And social media does have its good too. Like you can advocate for different things. Like you can learn so much, connect with friends. So it's not all like bad, obviously.
Right.
And obviously with this platform, we're posting our podcast on, and we're able to reach a lot of people. So there's good sides to social media too. It depends on how you use it.
Yeah. And when you realize that everyone is important and valued, you can feel like more fulfilled. Because I know like prior to me being in like clubs and councils and all that, I did not like, I wouldn't walk up to someone that I hadn't seen or didn't have a class with. But now, like after all of my journeys and like my exposure to different groups of people, I understand the importance of like loving everyone equally, being kindness, and like how much more life can be fulfilling when you don't care what people think of you. So like even if someone's different than you, if like you don't see someone or they're wearing an outfit that you don't think is like fine, like you should still be kind. Maybe say hi. Like you never know what other people are going through, and just because someone's different than you, you should not be like scared to talk to them or judge them in any way. So yeah.
I agree with that.
Do you have anything to say?
Nothing besides the fact that, balance is always the big part of it. Anything in life. Social media should be balanced in your life. It shouldn't run your life.
Right.
Yep.
And I would say, things will change over time, and being able to develop good habits now is going to be better for you as an individual in the long run.
Right.
So that's episode 2 for the most part. Do you have any final words, any call to actions you want to make about where people can find more and how they can participate?
On our Instagram, like I said prior, and please, if you fill out the Google form, leave your name and how you could be on the podcast, what you'd like to talk about. If you want to wrap it up, Vanessa?
Yeah, so thank you guys so much again for tuning in. We're your co-hosts, Vanessa Liu.
And Gabrielle Robinson.
And always remember to embrace the mess and live life unfiltered. Bye, guys.